Hey, it's Dr. Brad, and if you were like me, all geared up for the Artemis launch last night, well, it was a bit disappointing, wasn't it? And that was that the Artemis 1 mission didn't take off. Now, there was a problem ultimately with the fuel system. So this giant rocket uses liquid oxygen and liquid helium. Now, these both need to be kept super cool. But there was a problem in regulating the temperature, so they had to keep pumping in more of this coolant essentially to keep it cool. But a temperature regulator or valve, they're still working through that, was leaking the temperature back out, warming it up. Now, when this warms up, you can get things like condensation, you can get moisture, you can get all sorts of things building up both inside the tank and around the outside. This means that if and when they were to ignite the fuel, you could get some really catastrophic problems. So ultimately, they decided to scrub the mission, which is postpone that launch for the day. We were originally thinking maybe the weather was going to come into play. That appeared to not be the case. It was this technical malfunction. So where are we at now? They are looking through the data. They're going to be soon deciding, can they fix this problem on the launch pad? Or do they need to take it back to the vehicle assembly building? Now, this is a big decision. If they can fix this on the launch pad, that means it's going to be a fairly quick fix. And more importantly, they can hit one of the next launch dates. Now, currently, the next launch date is in the afternoon, Friday, US Eastern Time, which in Australia is about 2:30 or so a.m. Saturday morning. If they have to take it to the vehicle assembly building, that means they have to roll the rocket all the way back. They have to then fix it, do a number of checks, roll the rocket back out, and this can take weeks, meaning a huge delay in the mission. So hopefully it does appear to be a quick fix. Now, what is Artemis all about anyways? Well, Artemis is about getting humans back to the moon. And this is why we're all, myself included, super excited. We haven't seen humans on the moon since December 16th, 1972. That's when the 3 astronauts of Apollo 17 left the orbit of the moon and headed back to Earth. Now, Artemis 1 will not have anyone in it. It will be a dry run, a dress rehearsal for getting the rocket and the capsule to the moon, staying there and coming back. And if it all works according to plan, and it will work at some point, they will then send humans on Artemis 2, with humans landing on the moon on Artemis 3. And this is all about getting back to the moon, but also staying there for longer durations, spending a month, maybe even a few months on and around the moon. Because the idea is you can use the moon kind of as a base or a launch pad. We now know the moon has lots of ice. Ice is water, water is H2O, H2O is hydrogen and oxygen. That same stuff that the Space Launch System uses for its fuel. So this means it can go backwards to Earth without carrying the fuel with it to the moon, or it could use the moon and go onwards to Mars. So this is why we're all excited. It's not just about the moon. It's about getting back to the moon, staying there, and onwards to Mars. Now, for a completely different turn of topic, black hole sounds. Yes, black holes can emit sound. When we mean sound, we're actually talking about acoustic waves. These are the sounds that travel through, you're hearing me right now, through acoustic waves. Now, we often think, well, there's no sound in space. Well, that's mostly true, but it doesn't mean their frequencies or those waves aren't there. Lots of objects, from the sun to black holes, emit these acoustic waves. And if there's something for it to travel through, in this case, a bunch of gas swirling around a black hole, you can actually pick up these waves. And this is exactly what a team of scientists and engineers and musicians did, taking these frequencies, tuning it into a sound that we can hear with our ears, and then playing it. So let's have a listen. So, it's amazing, right? It sounds exactly almost what you would think a black hole would sound like. It's creepy, it's eerie, it almost sounds like a stomach gurgling, and this is really true sounds. Now, it's about 57 to 58 octaves, so sets of essentially notes below what you can hear with their own ears. But the relative sounds or changes between each of those is really real. That is the relative changes or pitches this black hole is doing. Now, how does this exactly happen? Well, black holes emit lots of energy. As stuff is essentially shot out of the black hole, it travels through space, and if it travels through gas swirling around it, these acoustic waves can be created. And you tune it to a frequency you can hear with our ears, and we have this year's Halloween track, The Sound of a Black Hole. And every astronomer's favorite new telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, has still been busy. And it's discovered produced two amazing cool images. One is not an image at all, and this is measuring the atmosphere of an exoplanet. So a planet is a planet around another star, and one of the big goals of James Webb is to measure the atmospheres. Does it have nitrogen or oxygen? The first one they looked at had water vapor, as we talked about here. But this new one that they've measured has lots of carbon dioxide. Now, this is really cool because planets like Mars and Venus have tons of carbon dioxide in their atmosphere. So we think that this is probably potentially common, or maybe it's not common. We haven't known. We haven't been able to measure or are there planets that have lots of carbon dioxide in their atmosphere. Now, this can be quite important for understanding, could there be life? What those planets could be like? Could it support life? All of those big questions. And James Webb also took a look at another planet, but much closer this time, and that is Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system, and what a lot of people don't realize, it has so many different things going on. Jupiter has rings. Saturn gets all the credit for the rings, but Jupiter has a faint ring system. It has lots of moons, and one of the cool things that Jupiter does is it produces aurora. So due to the huge magnetic field, the huge amount of energy going around this planet, it can produce vibrant or big aurora. Just as we have sometimes the southern lights or the northern lights, the aurora borealis or australis, Jupiter can produce their own northern or southern lights on its planet. And the James Webb Space Telescope spotted it all. And finally, dinosaurs. Yep, you heard it right. There is a new crater that may be associated with the wiping out of the dinosaurs. So a fairly wide-held belief based on lots of data is that a giant asteroid smashed to Earth about 66 million years ago. This hit off the northern part of Mexico, creating a crater 180 kilometers wide. Now, we found bits of the asteroid in that crater. We found bits of the crater all around the Earth, signs of the asteroid all around. And it's a fairly conclusive idea that this is what wiped out dinosaurs and most of the life at that time. But a completely coincidental finding was some scientists were actually not even looking for this at all. They were looking at mapping how the African tectonic plate had broken off from the Atlantic and North American plates. When they were mapping the ocean, found a new crater. Now, this new crater was hundreds of meters off the coast of West Africa, and when they measured the age, it turned out to be 66 million years. So this is interesting. This crater is about the same age as the other one. Now, it's a lot smaller. The one off of Mexico is 180 kilometers wide. This one is about 8.5 kilometers wide. So whatever asteroid or object created this was much, much smaller than the one that created the one off the northern part of Mexico. Is this related? Well, no one's quite sure, but it could be. The asteroid that hit the Earth at that time could have broken off into two, and a smaller part could have crashed over Africa, and the bigger one crashed over Mexico. It could have been two asteroids that somehow got knocked and collided with Earth. Something could have fractured, or it just could be unrelated and around the same time, but not necessarily related to the wiping out of dinosaurs and the rest of the life. So it's still a big mystery, but quite an interesting surprise, because if it really was related and around the same time, this would have added to the damage and chaos and destruction that reigned during that time, because you would have had the tsunami from the impact, you'd have had the dirt flying in the air, blocking out the sun, changing the climate, wiping out plants and dinosaurs that eat the plants and the dinosaurs that eat the dinosaurs that eat the plants, and it could have amplified all of those problems. So quite an interesting surprise if it holds true. So I hope you've enjoyed this update in space. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube to stay up to date for more exciting space news.